Hello and welcome to your next installment of Yoga 101. So today's session will be focused on core, spine strengthening and back bends. So as we work through the different poses today and explore your alignment and technique, you'll start to feel that back bends in particular aren't just about how mobile your spine is or the backwards movement. It has a lot to do with being open through your front body to allow that movement to happen. And we find a balance of stability and strength as we come into back bends to also support, especially our lower back, and make sure that we're moving safely as we come into these different poses. So please take it at your own pace, come into modifications or variations that feel good in your body, and always take care, especially with backward bends. Okay, so we're going to start warming up together by revisiting our sun salutation, our vinyasa flow. So feet together at the top of your mat, hands to heart center. And as you inhale, extend your hands towards the sky, palms touch. And as you exhale, fold forward. Bend the knees as much as you need to, fingertips touch the ground. Inhale to lift halfway, fingertips stay on your mat or they come to your shins. Then step your feet back to your high plank. Bring your knees down onto the ground, elbows graze the rib cage as your shoulders come forward. Inhale, baby cobra, use your back strength to lift your chest. Chin comes to the mat, then come back through your knees, tuck your toes, downward facing dog. Now in your down dog, feel free to pedal the feet out for a few moments, opening out through the back of your legs. And then pause, melt the heels down towards the ground, creating that upside down V shape from your hands to your hips to your heels. Come onto your toes, bend your knees, start to walk your feet up towards your hands. Inhale to lift halfway, exhale to fold. Inhale, come all the way to stand, palms touch, and bring your hands to heart center. So that was your modified vinyasa flow. Please stay with that modification or work with me as we keep our knees lifted and come into upward facing dog this time. Inhale, hands to the sky. Exhale, fold forward, bend the knees if you need to. Inhale to lift and lengthen, shoulders back. Step the feet back into high plank, option to keep the knees lifted, shift the weight forward, shoulders forward, bend the elbows to 90 degrees. Slide the chest forward into your upward facing dog. The only thing touching the ground are my hands and my feet. Flip over the toes, push back, downward facing dog. Come onto the balls of your feet, bend your knees. Step or float the feet up to meet the hands, feet are together. Lift and lengthen as you inhale. Exhale to fold. Inhale to stand, palms touch. And we finish our sun salutation by bringing our hands back to heart center, standing tall and proud. Beautiful. This time as we come through our vinyasa flow, we're going to pause in our high plank and we will talk about our core strengthening. So as you inhale, hands to the sky and fold forward, let it go. Inhale to lift halfway. Exhale, step your feet back into your high plank, top of a push-up position, and bring your knees down to the ground. Now have a little bit of a check-in with your alignment. Are your shoulders over your wrists? Have you rolled your shoulders away from your ears to broaden through your collarbones? And are your hips in line with the rest of your spine? So not lifting your hips up and also not coming into a backward bend and allowing the hips to sag down. So engage through your belly, so your abdominals, sucking belly in towards spine. Engaging through the core to keep your hips in line with the rest of the spine. So this is your modified plank. You can also tuck your toes under and lift the hips and the knees, but still hips in line with the rest of the spine. Not lifting your tailbone up, not sinking the hips down. Finding that midpoint, keeping your hips in line with the rest of the spine. Holding together, one more breath, and let it go. So it is a pose that we tend to move through a lot during our hot or flow practices. But it is also building strength and stability, strong core, strong practice. And having a strong core also protects our back when we come into our backward bending movements as well. So that was our high plank pose. We also have side plank. So with our side plank, there's different ways of getting into this position, but we're going to go from high plank. So revisiting your plank pose.
And then you're going to swivel onto the outside edge of your left foot and then bring your left knee down onto the ground and sweep your right hand straight up towards the sky. So this is your modified side plank. By bringing the bottom knee down, so on this side it's the left knee down, you are supporting a lot of your weight in that knee. It takes pressure off your shoulder and your wrist and also off your core. And you're extending your arm straight up, your right arm straight up towards the sky. So this is your modification. Otherwise, if you're bringing both legs together and straightening, then we don't have the bottom knee down anymore. So straightening the legs, stacking the feet, and making sure that you're not dropping your hips down. Keep your hips still in line with the rest of your spine. So this is your side plank. We're sticking with this variation today, but you might also see other variations within the room when you come into practice as well. Bring your left knee down and relax, maybe giving your arm a shake out. So you can start to see how there's always variations and modifications to match your current level. And during class and each time you come into the room, you might find that you choose a different variation depending on how your body's feeling. So coming to the other side, visit your high plank first, planting down through the hands. Stack your shoulders over your wrists. Now come onto the outside edge of your right foot, then bring your right knee down onto the ground. Keep your right shoulder stacked over your right wrist as you extend your left hand towards the sky. Beautiful. So this is your modification. You also have the option of straightening your legs, stacking the feet, still stacking right shoulder over right wrist and extending your left hand straight up towards the sky. Keeping this variation, but just being aware that there's other options for you to work towards. And relax. You can really see how the difference it makes having that bottom knee down on the ground compared to having it lifted. Beautiful. So that's our plank and our side plank. We're going to start to explore some of our spine strengthening and backward bending movements now. Remembering that it has a lot to do with opening out through your front body and also engaging through your core to help support the back as you come into these backward bends. Now the first one we're going to come down to is our baby cobra, which you've already experienced coming through your sun salutations and your vinyasa flow. So coming into your high plank, then shift your shoulders forward, knees to the ground. Shoulders keep tracking forward as you bend your elbows alongside your ribcage, come all the way down to the mat. Hands are underneath your shoulders, chin to the mat. And then as you inhale, lift your chest up, but you're using your spine strength. So my hands are on the ground, but there's no weight in my hands. And just taking note to see if your feet are anchored. If your feet are lifting, less focus on your glutes, more focus on your spine strength. Roll your shoulders down and back and make sure that you're not dropping your chin down, but you're also not overextending through the neck here. So just keep your head and neck in line with the rest of your spine, using your spine strength to lift your chest off the ground. Hands are on the ground, but no weight in the hands. And relax. Stack your hands, bring your forehead down to touch. Maybe move your hips from side to side. Now your baby cobra that we just did, so that is something that you'll experience as you go through your vinyasa flow and your sun salutations, but also as an isolated pose in some spine strengthening sequences as well. From our cobra, you might also start to experience locust pose or salabhasana. So if you did tend to lift your feet off the ground in your cobra, that's moving towards locust pose. So coming back down on your bellies, and you're bringing your hands a little bit further back in line with your rib cage, chin on the mat. Inhale to lift the chest, exhale to now lift your feet. So now you have the complete activation of the back line of your body. So all the muscles along your spine, your glutes, and the back of your legs. Hands can either stay on the ground or reaching them behind you with your palms facing down. So keep lifting up as high as you can. Your mat's red hot, you don't want to touch it. Even press down through your abdominals as that bring you up a little higher. Beautiful, full expression, rise up, lift up, and relax. Stack your hands, bring your forehead down to touch, relax. Allowing your spine to neutralize for a few moments. But you can start to see how you're building that strength along the back line of your body. And building strength through your spine helps to support your back, your core. We also have another spine strengthening and backward bending pose down the ground called Dhanurasana floor bow. So this is a variation. We haven't done a lot of deep backward bending today. So if the feet aren't within your reach, please just work with Salabhasana locust pose. If they are within your reach, just be really mindful. Just come into a gentle variation today. So we're coming back down onto our bellies. Bending your knees and seeing if your feet are within your reach. If not, just do one of the first two variations. Then from here, start to lift your chest using your back strength and just a gentle kick into the hands, just so you can start to experience how your leg strength comes into play. Your knees don't go out any wider than your hips, so the knees stay in quite close together, not touching, they're in line with your hips, and you're kicking into the hands to lift your chest, to lift your knees, and it's natural to have a little bit of movement as your breath is continuing to move. But essentially, this is your Dhanurasana floor bow shape. And relax. Extend the legs, stack your hands, and relax. Take a few moments here. Maybe start to tune in with how your back's feeling. Wiggling the hips from side to side can help to release. And then pushing back into extended child's pose for a few moments. So knees nice and wide, big toes touching. Extend your arms long and bring your forehead down onto the ground. Now with your child's pose, it is a lovely restorative position to come into, quite neutral for the spine, just for you to release out of those backward bending movements. And in fact, if the class that you're participating in, if backward bending isn't feeling good for you today, then you can always come to child's pose, rest and rejoin the class when you're ready. Now I do want to speak about upward facing dog again, because that is also a backward bending movement. So when you're working through your vinyasa flow, of course, baby cobra is your first option. And then the main option, of course, there's cobra where you're pressing into your hands, but at Kula, the main two variations we'll guide you through will be baby cobra as a modification, otherwise downward facing dog. So with down dog, it is a back bend, but you're not completely sinking into the spine here. You still have engagement through your core. So the hips are down in line with almost in line with your hands. So you are quite upright. And the only things touching the ground are your hands and the tops of your feet. So you're lifting up through the crown of the head, long through your neck, and once again, not dropping the chin down, but not overextending through your neck. Find that midpoint to keep your head and neck in line with the rest of the spine. And then you flip over your toes to push back into down dog. One more time, coming forward into high plank. Bend through the elbows. Now shine the heart up and forward as you come into your up dog, making sure your head and neck in line with the rest of the spine. Roll your shoulders down and back. You're long and you're still engaged through your core as you then lift the hips, roll over the toes, push back, downward facing dog. Beautiful, relax. So if you are working with upward facing dog, just remembering that it is still an active pose. So you're not just simply relaxing and compressing through your lower back. You're staying active through the front body, protecting the lower back. Now I will talk you through Ustrasana camel pose today too. This is a deep back bend that we usually do 2/3 of the way through a class when you are really open. So we're going to talk about it more than we're going to come into the deep back bend today. So coming onto your knees and bringing two fists in between your knees gives you a good indication of how wide they should be for this pose. You're coming up onto your knees and you're stacking your hips over the knees. Now, one of the main things we see when we come into camel pose is that a lot of people tend to, as soon as they come into a backward bend, they tend to tilt their pelvis forward and then try and go back from there. You can see, actually you can experience it for yourself. Bring your hands to your hips, tilt your hips forward, And just start to notice how compressed your lower back is right now. So right down towards the bottom of your spine, that squeezing or compression doesn't feel great. So instead of that, can you bring your entire spine and your hips to a neutral position? So just the natural curve of your spine. And then you're going to support your lower back, fingertips down or up, whatever's more comfortable for you. And then inhale and lift up through the crown of your head and engage through your core. So engage your abdominals. Beautiful. So this is where you start. And then maybe you're lifting your head towards the sky. Any issues with your neck, you keep your chin tucked in. Otherwise, looking up towards the sky. And again, this might be where you stay. Maybe you're starting to shine the heart towards the sky and come into a slight back bend. Now, as you do so, imagine that someone's got a rope attached to your heart and they're pulling upwards. So it's never relaxing into this pose. It's always lifting up and over, always finding length before you come into that extension. So inhale to lift up out of the way, shine your heart, keep your spine long and come into your gentle back bend. And then slowly come back through center. Sit down, hips to heels. Now I'll demonstrate to you where you go with full camel, but I'd like you to just watch. We haven't done a lot of deep backward bend, but I'd like you to see where the movement goes. And then when you're in a full class, if this is something that's available to you and you have the range of motion to do so, then you can experience it when you're properly warmed up. So coming up onto the knees, so just watching what I'm doing with my hands. My hands come to my lower back. Inhale to lift up out of the waist. Now you may find that you tuck your toes under to bring your heels a little closer towards you. You can notice as soon as I point my toes, my heels are further away. So today I'll demonstrate with the toes tucked under. Inhale, lift up out of the waist, supporting my lower back. Someone's pulling up through my heart space, so I'm always finding length. And notice that I'm not going to drop my hips back. My hips stay in line with my knees and maybe reaching for the heels. Lifting the chest towards the sky. From here, bringing hands back to the lower back to support, to come back up to neutral, and then sitting back onto the heels, tops of the hands, tops of the thighs. Eyes closed and breathe. Now you'll find that when you release out of camel pose, it's quite natural for your heart rate to be elevated. Backward bending movements are very energizing and invigorating in comparison to our forward folds, which are very calming and nourishing. So you'll find that backward bends can be nature's caffeine. So they are very energizing. So it's natural for heart rate to be elevated, for you to feel open, to get all that prana energy flowing through the body as well. All right, so that's Ustrasana, your camel pose, and that's quite often the deep back bend that you'll experience in a hot class. We will talk through bridge and full wheel. So coming onto your back, you're going to lie down and bend your knees and plant your feet into the ground. Now your feet are at hip distance, so they're not out as wide as your mat, but they're also not together. So find that happy medium to keep your heels in line with your hips. And see if you can tickle your heels with your hands, so the heels are in quite close. Now, take a look, if you've never done bridge before, watch me first, because as soon as our hips leave the ground, our head and neck are in a partial lock, so we don't want to move them, just to keep them protected. So watch if you need to. I'm going to press down through my feet, keep my hands on the ground, and lift my hips towards the sky. So if you're watching now, this is the position we are creating. You also have the option of interlacing your hands underneath you, wriggling onto the outside edges of your shoulders, and pressing your pinkies down towards the ground underneath you. And then to release, we let the hands go and slowly bring the hips down towards the ground. Maybe moving the knees from side to side, or bringing soles of the feet together, knees out to the side, for Supta Baddha Konasana as a nice neutral position to rest in between sets. So now that you know where we're going, we'll do it together. So instead of watching and moving your head, just listening to my cues as I bring you into the pose. So bend your knees and plant your feet onto the ground at hip distance. Make sure your heels are quite close to your hips. Bring your hands down onto the ground, palms on the earth next to your hips. With your next inhale, press through your feet to lift your hips towards the sky. Maybe you're interlacing your hands underneath you, wriggle onto the outside edges of your shoulders, press your pinkies down towards the earth and lift your hips. Keep your head and your neck still. I know it's really tempting to squeeze your glutes here, and your glutes are active, but can you put more emphasis into pushing down through your feet to lift your hips up higher? Remember to breathe. And then slowly releasing, one vertebrae at a time, coming all the way down towards the earth. Maybe moving your knees from side to side to windscreen wipe. Maybe soles of the feet together, knees out to the side. Now we do also have other backward bending movements like full wheel. Now once again, this is something we should do really warmed up. So I'll move into a full wheel for a few breaths, but I'd like you to simply watch, just so that you know when you are warmed up in class, where the pose goes, how you get into it and out of it safely. But this is quite a deep back bend, and it might not be for you, whether it's today or any other day, but at least you have the awareness of what the pose is and how to get in and out. So with your full wheel, you're starting with the legs in the same position as you do for bridge, planting down through the soles of the feet. Then you're going to bring your hands either side of the ears at shoulder width, elbow tips facing up towards the sky. And then at the same time, you're going to press through your hands and your feet. So pressing through the hands and the feet and lifting up. Now from here, you adjust the hands and feet if you need to. You're breathing, trying to extend through the arms and the legs, holding for 3 to 5 breaths if that's available. Now before you come down, chin in towards your chest to lower onto your shoulders, not the top of your head, and then gently lowering your hips down towards the ground. Pausing here in neutral, it can feel good to move the knees a little. But you can see how if you can't get off the crown of your head as you come up into your full wheel, usually a good idea just to stick with bridge. So we're not putting any weight on our head on our way up, and on the way down we tuck the chin under to come onto our shoulders, not the top of the head again. So very important, we want to keep our neck protected. Okay, so we'll start to wind things down. So if you're not on your back, come down onto your backs and start to bring your right knee in towards your chest. Give it a hug, a bit of a squeeze. Might be a little pinch in your hip flexor to start with, so just be patient and allow that to slowly dissolve. Then keep your left hand on the knee, right hand to the side, guiding the knee across your body into a gentle spine twist. If you need more support, tuck your right toes behind the knee. Otherwise, right foot starts to find the ground on the opposite side. Take 3 deep breaths here. At the end of your 3rd breath, coming back through center. Then you're extending your right leg long and bringing your left knee in towards your chest. So hug the knee in. And keeping your right hand on your knee, left hand to the side, coming into your twist, so knee crosses over the body. If you need more support, tuck your toes behind the right knee. Otherwise, foot starts to find the ground on the opposite side. Perhaps starting to close your eyes down. Deep breath into the twist. Breathing together. And slowly come back through center. And you're going to bring your right ankle on top of your left thigh. Draw your right knee out to the side. Flex your right toes. Maybe this is enough for you if your hips are feeling tight. Otherwise, thread the hands through either underneath the left thigh or over the top of the left shin. Keep the feet flexed to protect your knees and ankles, and allow the stretch to focus on your right hip. And slowly release. Both feet to the ground. Left ankle on top of right thigh. Flex the toes. Maybe this is enough for you. Otherwise, you can interlace the hands underneath the right thigh, maybe on top of the right shin, and flex the toes. Gently hugging your legs in towards you to find that stretch through the outside of your left hip. And slowly releasing. Both feet down. Then hug your knees in, little rock from side to side. Any other movements that your body is craving before we open up into our final Shavasana for a few moments of stillness. So arms and legs are long. You're allowing your entire back body to be heavy against the earth. Palms facing towards the sky as an offering. Just allowing yourself to be soft. Allowing yourself to be heavy. Allowing yourself to be supported. As your belly rises and falls with every inhalation and exhalation. Embracing stillness. Breathe. And start to bring some gentle movement into your fingertips and your toes. And bending your knees and rolling over onto one side. Take your time to slowly press yourself up to seated. Cross-legged, hands to heart center. And gently bowing your head to seal your practice, and we say Namaste. Now I hope that that session gave you a little more confidence and body positioning technique for your core, your spine strengthening, and your backward bending movements. Thank you so much, and we'll see you back on your mat soon. Namaste.